Hello and welcome to Sri Lanka 99.94 Cricket Every Day. My name's Mark Machado from the Murali End, and I'm joined, as always, by Estelle Devon from the Papare, live from Australia. Sri Lanka 99.94 is your new home for Sri Lankan content. We'll be dropping into your podcast feed on YouTube or the 99.94 app several times every week. So please do rate, review, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your family, tell anyone who knows in Sri Lankan cricket that we are here. Thanks for joining Cricket's Conversation. Estelle, yes, we're recording this. In my time, it's about, I think, about 16 hours after Sri Lanka beat the UAE. It was quite a nervous game to watch, or at least for me. But actually, the win in the end was quite emphatic. It was by quite a large margin. Apart from the hat trick, which we'll get onto, not many problems were caused by the UAE. However, there is news coming out of the camp of more injuries. Can you give us an update on that, please?
Yeah, not great news coming out from here. So Dushmantha Chamir ruled out of the competition completely. Pramod Badushan is also carrying a hamstring injury, and so is Danushka Gunatilaka. So that's three guys, and I mean, if you take into account Dilshan Madushanka as well, Sri Lanka just kind of will be for at least for tomorrow's game, will be without their three top or their three first choice pace bowlers. Madhushan's injury, they're not sure on the severity of it, but there's a chance that all three of them are going to be ruled out, including Gunatilaka. So SLC is also not, they don't want to bring anyone down until tomorrow's game. Obviously, we have to win if we are to go through. So no one's being flown in yet. But the news is that it'll probably be Kasun Rajitha for Dushmantha Chamira, and maybe someone like Asita Fernando might also join him, because Ashin Bandar is already here and he was having a hit in the nets today. So if Gunatilaka is ruled out, then he'll likely just come into the 15.
That would mean, if all three were ruled out, that would mean all the reserve players are over, right? Is that correct? Because there was a standby list of... Because there was 15 there.
Players.
Yeah, and there was a standby list of 5. Oh, yeah, so that would mean just Pravin Joe would be the only player who's not in the squad at this moment, right? And obviously he's a spinner, so, you know, he hasn't had a space freed up yet. Can we talk a little bit more about Chamira's injury? Just before I came on, well, actually, not just when I woke up this morning, the first message I saw was from my cousin Dominic in America, who'd said, just had a thought, if that catch had been taken a couple of balls before, I think from the previous over, then Chamira would never have bowled that last over, never would have been injured. And obviously, in my coming out of sleep state, I went into deep thought about that and thought about it. But then I remembered that actually Chamira was carrying an injury anyway, right? And did he need surgery going into this tournament? So we were kind of making him play was delaying the inevitable anyway, right?
I know, I saw those kind of tweets about if Van der Sar had held on to the catch in the previous over, he wouldn't have bowled anyway. But I feel like it was coming because there was something that he didn't look comfortable out there in the middle. He was nowhere near his regular pace. He was bowling in the mid 130s. Even that third over he bowled, I felt he did look a bit uncomfortable, like he was really trying hard to come in quickly and bowl fast, but there seemed to be no rhythm. I know he picked up a couple of wickets and had a really good spell, but it just something looked off. And from what I heard, he had already been kind of dealing with pain with some injections and medication as well. So I feel like it would have happened eventually. It's the same injury, the calf injury is the same one that kept him out of the Asia Cup. So, I mean, it's horribly disappointing for him, I think, because obviously he wasn't able to be a part of the Asia Cup winning team when he's been such an important part of that side leading up to that competition, the last year and a half, 2 years, he's been the guy carrying that bowling attack, particularly with the quick bowlers. So it's massively disappointing for him, I'm sure, but also, I mean, as a team, when you lose your lead pace bowler after how well he bowled the other day. And what's sad, I think, was, I mean, he was so pumped up with those wickets. You hardly see Dushmanta Chamira showing that much emotion, right? But he was so pumped up. I think it's because there was a bit of criticism even from Shanaka in the previous game, because Sri Lanka obviously went for plenty in the death overs.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really disappointed for him, to be honest, because imagine like carrying the fast bowling attack for 2 years, and the one tournament you miss, Sri Lanka go all the way. It's crazy, right? But yeah, unfortunately, he's not going to play any further part in the tournament.
It's devastating from the fans' perspective of Sri Lankan cricket. It's also just devastating from kind of just following a player that we've followed for so many years now, because every time he seems to get a bit of momentum, he seems to get a bit, get an injury. I think, off the back of a couple of spells in the IPL, he's becoming such a formidable player, and you were like, right, this is his moment to move into that top tier of all time Sri Lankan seam bowlers, right? And look at the performance he's put in. Even before he comes off yesterday, that was at the first over, he gets 2 wickets, and you're like, oh wow, he's actually just a real hand. It feels like he can get wickets at will, and I haven't felt like that about a seamer since Malinga's been around, right? And then for him to get injured, and as you say, miss the Asia Cup, which was such a euphoric moment. I mean, at some point we need to talk more widely about fast bowlers getting injured in Sri Lanka and why that happens, because I know there's different theories about it, and because if the wheels do come off, well, the wheels are coming off Sri Lanka at the moment, and it's really mainly down to just the sheer volume of injuries, right? That's what's we're buckling under. So really, SLC at some point need to address this if we're going to become a top cricket nation. Not top, we're a top cricket nation anyway. If we're going to become a force that we once were, then they've got to get on top of this, because we need consistency in players. Because at this stage, it looks like it's quite possible our kind of 5th or 6th choice seam bowlers might be in the squad next, if we're around next week, might be there next week, right? Which is it's just not a really great look. Let's take a quick break, but when I get back, let's talk about yesterday's performance in a bit more depth.
You're listening to Cricket's Conversation on 99.94. Whatever your team, we have the show for you on podcast, YouTube, or on the 99.94 app. We have India, England, South Africa, West Indies, and now Sri Lanka covered. If you want to find us, the best way is to follow us on social media at 9994DM by downloading the 9994 app or Google 99.94 on podcast. We speak cricket.
Estelle, what was it like in the stadium yesterday? You were lucky enough to be in Geelong. Personally, I've seen Sri Lanka play 2 games in Geelong, though I think they may have played there before in the past. And I am not a fan of that stadium. It just doesn't do anything for me, though it does get quite a good Sri Lankan crowd in it. And I think was there 2 Papre bands in the stadium yesterday? What was the atmosphere like? Was it as nervous as I was? How did the boys feel after the game?
Yeah, there wasn't as much of a crowd as we saw in the previous game. Obviously, that was on a Sunday, so a lot of people had driven in from Melbourne for the game. But yesterday's game didn't have as many people in. The Papare band is actually, I think it's like a. It's not connected to the papare.com, but it's called the Papare Melbourne.
No, I know.
It's called the Papare Melbourne. They're a band, and they're kind of like maybe the Barmy Army or Bharat Army, where they kind of travel to Sri Lankan games, and they have their own little packages for tickets and stuff like that. So they were playing right below us, so the atmosphere was fantastic. I think the players also enjoyed kind of having that kind of atmosphere in the grounds. So it was good overall. I think they would have been very, very happy. You could see from their reactions kind of, I, I don't know what it is. If you look at like every time Sri Lanka has done well, like in a way that we haven't expected them to. For example, that series in South Africa, when we beat England in England, the last World Cup, somebody has always insulted us, or we've assumed that they've insulted us previously, and that's kind of pumped up the guys, and they've kind of
Well, even that Asia Cup,
yeah,
right? That
yeah.
that gets ignited by the Bangladesh coach,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
So even this, I felt like after that absolute like thrashing against Namibia, I'm sure many of them would have been on social media seeing the stuff that people post, right? So there must have been a bit of their pride being hurt and stuff like that. So they were pretty pumped up. Like I mentioned, Chamira was really pumped up. We saw Hasaranga, Tikshana, all really kind of pumped up by the wickets they were getting, and which is, I mean, coming up against a team like UAE, they wouldn't usually celebrate like that. But there were big celebrations yesterday because I think because of the manner in which they lost the first game. I, I forgot to say, as a fan, when we're talking about Dushmantha Chamira, right? This was potentially
Yeah.
going to be the fastest ever Sri Lankan bowling attack. Kumara, Madhusanga, and Chamira, and now we're down two. So I don't know.
I mean, like the one thing I would say, going back to that, is I do think the players coming in are really good. I think in previous years when we've got down to beyond our main kind of strike bowlers, I think there's been quite a step down in quality. Well, I think the boys coming in deserve a chance to be there and are there totally on merit. I don't think, I'm not worried that, that they're going to let anyone down. I think they're really good bowlers. I think,
Yeah.
they've got experience at international level, mainly because of just the sheer number of injuries that Sri
Yeah.
Lankan seam bowlers seem to have. I'm not
The only
worried.
issue there is that, I mean, Kasun Rajitha last played in July, Binura Fernando February, Lahiru Kumara March. That's my only kind of
Yeah.
worry, right? They haven't had international cricket, and someone like Lahiru Kumara hasn't kind of been involved that much in domestic cricket either. So that's the kind of,
That's the one
I
worry
mean,
about it, right? It's
yeah,
just, can they find rhythm? And like at this point, it's like, can they find rhythm and bowl consistently 4 overs a game, and can they not get injured? Right, because if we get
yeah,
any more
that's the big one.
injuries, then it's going to be a real struggle, right? At that point, I think
Yeah.
we're just, we'd end up trying bringing spinners and all sorts in and trying to,
Chris Silverwood might bowl a few.
yeah, exactly, right. I've heard that theory before as well, and yeah, I'd imagine if there's any more injuries, Shanaka and Charmaka will have to bowl their 8 overs per game, and I think at this point, I just don't think they are into T20 international seam bowlers. And on top of all that, we've just got a whole bastion of other bowlers who are just better than them. I'm at doing what, at throwing the ball down the wicket. So it's a bit of a shame, but I suppose needs must, right? Oh gosh, I'm not sure whether it's a good moment or it's a bad moment for Sri Lanka cricket. But we talk a lot about the mentality of Sri Lankan cricketers and the team around it, and I do think you are right. They need a bit of going into anything being favourites. Just it never works out for us. It's when people expect nothing from us, and because I think I've thought this for a long time, because of the amount of times I've had to have conversations with people about actually Sri Lanka are a very established cricket nation. They're a cricketing, they're actually a cricketing giant. If you go back and look at how many finals that we've been in and stuff we've done, and you go back and you look at open any records book about cricket, there's so many Sri Lankan players and so many Sri Lankan teams that have various different records, and it always feels like we're fighting to prove ourselves. And the moment we ever we ever start to relax and go, oh, this will be fine, they're not even a test play nation, was that game against Namibia, and it goes so wrong. And I do think a large part of it, and I heard Das and Shanaka say this before the game yesterday, a large part of it was, I think they just had a lot of them just had a bad day in the office, right? We all have bad days. The problem is, when you're an international cricketer, you have a bad day, you probably lose a game. And that was not the game to lose on Sunday. But now suddenly we're right in the thick of it, and we've got a scrape. It's quite possible winning tomorrow might not be enough. I mean, it should be, because of the run rate situation. But
Yeah, I think it's gonna be if we beat the Netherlands, because right now our net run rate is higher than
theirs, yeah.
the Dutch. Yeah, so we are 0.6 and they are 0.1. So they have to
Estelle,
beat us.
we've been
beat them
recording this
too.
podcast about 3 months now, and I think we can establish that I know nothing about maths. The amount of time, like what listeners won't know, is how much I get the timings wrong for things, and how basically you have to tell me what time you think it will be in England. I will tell you what time I think it will be in whatever time zone you're in, and then we're at the stage now where you have to book it so that I get the email in the time it is going to be in England. Otherwise, I'm going to turn up wrong. So if there's any numbers involved, I will get it wrong. And I promise you as well, just to add to this, I didn't fail my math GCSE. I have a maths. Like, I have qualifications in mathematics, and I do, like, I am numerate. I just can't work anything out ever. So yeah,
Yeah, but the equation is simple. It's
Win,
simple.
and you're
Whoever
through.
wins tomorrow between Netherlands and Sri Lanka will go through. But like, whether we finish A1 or A2 depends on what happens in the next game. So, I mean, if Namibia can manage a big win, I think it's most likely that they will go through as A1 and we will be A2. But I mean, I'm just hoping we have a performance like we did yesterday, because I really want to be in the A1 group.
Oh yeah, you want that fixture against Australia, right? A lot of people online, though, a lot of social media wants SL in the other group, right? I personally have no preference at this stage. I'm just happy if we get there.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we can really say that is the weaker group, because we've struggled against some of those teams in the recent past. The only thing is the conditions will probably be better for the teams in the group we would go into if we are in A1. I don't know what the group is called. Okay, I think it's Group 1. So New Zealand, Australia, and England will probably enjoy these conditions a bit more. And of course, Afghanistan will also be there, and they've got some good pace bowlers. But if we qualify, either group is going to be tough. I don't think there's going to be any change on who are the favourites to go through to the semis. Sri Lanka is always kind of going to be a dark horse, and even more so now after the loss against Namibia. So I don't think it should matter that much. I mean, that's not something you can control at the end of the day, right? Particularly because we are playing the first game tomorrow, so they don't. Yeah, I mean, that's a massive kind of headache as well, right? When you have to think about net run rate, sometimes you try to go for too many shots or get to like that 200 run mark and end up. I think that might have been something, played with their minds yesterday as well, because we looked on course to get about 180, and then kind of lost our way in the middle, finished with 150. So against its side that can bat a bit better, and the Netherlands have completed 2 really nervy chases so far. I know it's kind of
Can I stop you there? Let's just take a quick break and let's talk about our batting yesterday, and then how we approach the Dutch game.
If you love the language of cricket and want more, then head over to the 99.94 app and you can hear all of our podcasts and cricket commentary. We're adding new shows all the time and covering cricket series from all over the world. Be the first to hear all of our announcements by following us on social media at 9994DM. Welcome to Cricket's Conversation.
So Estelle, I actually thought yesterday we did all right. I thought 150, we made 152 or 153 was it? I think I felt we left maybe 15 to 20 runs out there. Obviously we bowled like absolute demons. So at the end of the day, it kind of didn't matter in terms of run rate. But I like the intent of sending. As you know, I won't tweet during the game unless it looks secure what the result will be, or there's a hat trick against us. But I thought the intent that we showed in terms of when we were sending players out was the right intent. I thought, for me, obviously, I love Pathum Nissanka. I think he's superb. People will bang on about his strike rate, but I think yesterday he did exactly what needed to be done. I was absolutely gutted for him when he got out the penultimate ball. Was it the penultimate ball of the innings, or was there two more balls left of the innings? Because he definitely deserved a red inker yesterday. And it would have, because I watch these things, I think if he'd carried his bat the whole way through, he would have ended up with a T20I average of 30, when now it's like 28.9 or something like that. So I was a bit sad for him for that. But I thought him and DDS were absolutely superb yesterday. Again, obviously we gave them the obligatory run out, because whenever you play Sri Lanka, one of the players will get run out. And you know, it happened to be DDS yesterday, but then I think they to send Banu in afterwards, I think was exactly the right decision, and we kind of carried that momentum. That hat trick right in the middle, absolutely. You can just tell that I want to say obviously they weren't expecting it, but I still think afterwards they had the right intent, right? I think they went about the kind of rebuild and getting to bat the full 20 overs the right way, because I think if it had happened a year ago, that hat-trick had happened a year ago, we'd have been bowled out within 2 overs after that. The whole thing would have fallen apart. But I think we managed to kind of carry on and go about it the right way.
Yeah, and that's, I think, 100% due to Nissanka, because I don't feel like some of the shots, particularly that of like Hasaranga, was needed in that moment, particularly after the kind of batting performance we put in against Namibia. But Nissanka, you know that I'm also someone who not necessarily kind of saw him as a great T20 player or that he would be a great T20 player. But what's great to see about him is that he knows his limitations and he plays within that, right? He knows he's not your Bhanuka Rajapaksa. He's not gonna hit every ball for six after coming in, like immediately after coming in. He knows he has to get in. He knows one of his strengths is running between the wickets, placing the ball well. So he's very well. I feel like he knows his game really well, and that's why he's been able to be successful in the limited overs game, despite being, I think, much more suited to red ball cricket. Because yesterday, without him, I could see Sri Lanka, struggling to get 140, right? I know it probably would have been a winning total anyway, but we were obviously trying to get as good a net run rate as possible from yesterday's game, in case, you don't know what's going to happen in the next match. So it's like disappointing on one hand with guys like Hasaranga. I know I don't think this is criticism, but when you watch him bat, right, like even in the nets or whatever, he's not a bowler who can bat a bit. He's a guy who can, he can genuinely bat. He's a good bat. You don't get tailenders who can play those kind of shots on the offside so well, right? So then to see him getting out, playing shots like that, not even like he's not targeting the short boundary, he's targeting a straight boundary where it's the boundary is long, like things like that. It's really frustrating because you know what this guy can be, right? He's still young. He can be the best all rounder in the world by a mile. He has that much
Absolutely.
potential
I
with
think
the
that's
bat,
the most
but
frustrating thing, right? Is that you can see, as you say, he is not a bowler who can bat a bit, hit a couple of sixes. He can really bat. I wondered yesterday, I wonder if the difference, if you look at the where Bardaka Rajapaksa is with his batting, you look at where Hasaranga is with his batting, I wonder if the difference is the people that they're working with. Are they is Hasaranga working with the right coaches to get his batting on point? At RCB, he was batting at 9 at one point. He is definitely the best batsman at 9. Me and you have advocated putting him up the order as high up as we possibly can. I want him to open, you wanted to bat at 3 or 4, I can't remember. And I think part of that is because me and you want to see him take more responsibility in his batting, right? And I think that's the frustrating thing, isn't it? That it's when you know somebody can do something, and then when the opportunities come for them to do something, they're not quite doing it as consistently as you think they should be doing it. You know, I'm almost going to go as far as saying I think that Geelong pitch is my enemy, and that one of the main reasons is because Hasaranga cannot find the boundary there. And maybe when he moves away from Geelong, if we ever get to play another game in this tournament outside Geelong, maybe that's where he might come into his own a little bit. But I totally get the frustrations that you're expressing from it. Was there much said post match about that hat trick in the kind of press and in the press conferences afterwards, and in the conversation in the press box that was going on?
yeah, we got to speak to Karthik Mayappan. So I'm really happy for the guy, right? I mean, just imagine coming into a tournament like this. You're up against some pretty big names from Asia, and you managed to pick up 3 really good wickets. I don't think any of them were bad deliveries either. 3 wrong uns to get the 3 wickets. So it's like, I mean, you have to kind of be happy for him, particularly because Sri Lanka won in the end. I mean, if he got a hat trick and we lost, I probably won't be saying that. But yeah, all he had to say was that he had his plans, particularly for Asalanka and Shanaka, that he was going to bowl the wrong one straight away. So obviously they've done their homework. They've looked through some footage. Shanaka has in the past had some trouble with the wrist spinners as well. So
I
yeah,
noticed when he was bowling at his delivery point, the ball's hidden, which is something that a lot of spinners are starting to do now, and I've heard people say that makes it more difficult to pick the ball, right? And I wonder if, because he's somebody that I don't think any of the Sri Lankan players would have batted against before, would have made it even harder for them to pick him, right? And that's why the shots were all over the place. But I was obviously just watching it at home on television, so I haven't actually seen him up close. So I don't know if that's right or wrong, but that was just my potted theory. Estelle, one more game. It's do or die now. They've got to beat the Dutch. What's the feeling like? Obviously, there's lots of injuries. I mean, can we expect another? I want to say that they need to put another massive effort in, but really, if we're struggling to beat the Dutch, we probably don't deserve to be in the group stages, do we?
yeah, you've watched the Dutch play over this kind of season, haven't you? So I guess you would know how good they are. What I feel is that it also depends on kind of the situations. Sri Lanka obviously have more pressure on them, don't they? So I guess that's also a factor. We had on skill, Sri Lanka are probably ahead of the Dutch, but in situations like this, imagine Asia Cup winners, you beat India, Pakistan, whoever, and win the Asia Cup, and you're knocked out in the first round of the World Cup. Or you could potentially be knocked out in the first round of the World Cup. That's bound to put much more pressure on the Sri Lankans. And like you said, the injuries, that middle order not firing, all of that is all that pressure is on Sri Lanka. For the Dutch, I guess they'd be hoping that Namibia lose to UAE, which would then allow them to go through, even if they lose to Sri Lanka. So, I mean, Sri Lanka should win, but that's what we thought against
Exactly.
Namibia as well, right? I don't think there was anybody apart from maybe the Namibians who thought that they would beat Sri Lanka this time. Last year, I know there were a lot of doubts about whether Sri Lanka would go through, and Sri Lanka did play both Netherlands and Namibia in the last tournament in the first round as well. So there, the wins were pretty comfortable. Here, we've already seen one upset. I'm hoping there isn't another one because, I mean, this is the time Sri Lanka need to kind of step up, right? Step up and kind of build from that Asia Cup. So hopefully not another upset, and we go through as A1.
I think they changed the pitch between the two because they have dropping pitches in Geelong, right? They changed the pitch between Sri Lanka's two games. I just think if SL basically just need to bat through the 20 overs, obviously, and if they get to bat first, they just need to put anything over 160. I think they'll win. If they can get anywhere, probably over 155, and they'll probably win. Because I think teams are really struggling to put big scores together on this pitch. And I think the Netherlands, I think they're Dutch, they are much better batters than they are bowlers. So just kind of try and do what we did yesterday and don't lose wickets in the middle overs and we'll be fine. But obviously that's easier said than done. I'm not even there. I don't have the pressure off it. I mean, I feel the pressure of it, but I don't have the pressure of it. I don't have to go out and perform. And I just hope the boys are able to get the result that we need and we can continue talking about Sri Lanka in the World Cup going into next week and beyond. But let's see. If for no other reason, Estelle, because I want you to get to that Sri Lanka versus Australia game in Perth. Before we wrap it up, how are you finding Australia at the moment? You still enjoying it? Is it all good?
Oh yeah, it's awesome. I mean, the weather is really good. It has been for the last couple of days. Temperature is up to 20. So I'm very happy about that. Yeah, it's really treating me good, and the first week has kind of flown. Should be hopefully in Hobart sometime during the weekend. So let's see how it goes.
Lovely. I think it's colder in Hobart, isn't it?
Apparently, it's not right now.
Oh, okay.
Right now, Melbourne is colder, apparently. I don't know. We'll see.
Lovely. Hopefully you make it there. Right. Thank you for listening to Sri Lanka on 99.94, where we speak cricket every day. Please do rate, review, subscribe, tell your friends, tell everyone you know who's into Sri Lankan cricket that we are here. You can download the 99.94 app and follow us on Twitter. I'm at Mark Machado. Estelle is at Estelle_Vasudev1, as in the number one. If you follow me, we're always retweeting each other, so you'll find Estelle, and if you follow Estelle, you should find me. Give me a follow, that'd be great. Never miss out. Join our 24/7 conversation on social media and follow us at 9994DM on Twitter as well. Cricket every day, your way.